Hey D, been looking forward to this conversation. How are you?
Good man, absolutely. I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm great. I'm great. You work at CoinKite. Your the place you work at. They create the amazing cold card.
That's right.
By the way, this isn't a sponsored interview or anything like that. I just wanted to have a conversation with you about
Absolutely.
storage, about altcoins, about just different things in the space where maybe there are a lot of things that people will go into in this coming bull run
Mhm.
that they should avoid. Let's actually start with altcoins. What are your thoughts on just everything
Sure.
other than Bitcoin?
Yeah, yeah. Everything other than Bitcoin is a shitcoin. No, I'm just kidding. You can invest your money whatever way you want. I mean, people like to speculative gamble. People love to go to casinos. Those are things people do on a regular basis. They want to make some money. They want to get rich quick. People go to those places to try or attempt to kind of fast track into more Bitcoin or into more wealth, right? And as you and I both know, obviously our dollar that we use kind of depreciates in value. So as citizens, we're kind of forced to almost buy assets to keep our wealth at least neutral or increase because the dollar that we're spending is going down. So, people that have never invested before, they see an ad on their Instagram for crypto.com or whatnot, and obviously, they just see a whole page of altcoins, right? And that's totally fine if you want to throw some money in there and try and make some money. That's great. I always say that most people lose money. A very small pool of people will make money off the backs of the most, right? Um, so I'm not gonna call them shitcoiners, even though I kind of do a little bit. But again, you can spend your money whatever way you want. Obviously, there's just kind of some major differences between saving your money in an asset like Bitcoin and speculative gambling at a casino. Usually, those things kind of pump over a cycle. Maybe they outperform Bitcoin over the short term, but over the long term, most of them, if not all, go down versus Bitcoin. I always encourage people to look at the shitcoin of choice versus Bitcoin chart. That's always kind of a big one. And as time goes on, it's always kind of like down and to the right. So yeah, people will shill narratives and try and get you to buy their bags so they can offload. Big game of hot potato. But at the end of the day, Bitcoin is kind of what matters most and what has held value over the longest period of time, in my opinion.
So why do you think something like Ethereum probably won't go anywhere over the next like 10, 15, 20 years? There's a lot of people who talk about, let's say, BSV,
Mhm.
BCH, obviously different reasons for all of them, but why do you think that actually maybe can you go if you have the knowledge, could you go
Sure.
coin by coin, maybe Ethereum, start with Ethereum? Because I get a lot of comments from people saying, oh, I see when I search for Bitcoin, I see BCH, I see BSV. Why am I
Mhm.
buying BTC? It's so much more expensive. Why can't I just buy BSV? Why can't I buy BCH? And I can get so many more coins for the same amount of money.
Mhm. In terms of Bitcoin forks, obviously Bitcoin has a set of rules. Each node runner runs a specific set of rules, and if you want to change those rules, similar to chess, you have to make a completely new game, right? If I went to a chess tournament and said, "Hey, I'm going to move my pawn 3 squares actually on my first move instead of two," they're going to say, "Get the hell out of here," right? They're not going to let you play. You can't just create your own rules. So people want to switch the rules. They want to adjust, tweak things that they think will make their protocol better. But in the end, most of the time they will fork. The coin it will pump and then it will dump. And at the end of the day, it's just this all comes back to proof of work, right? I mean, we have a crap ton. I don't even know the number of miners running Bitcoin and mining Bitcoin. And if you fork Bitcoin, you have to convince those miners to adopt the new protocol. Um, so most of the time they don't actually adopt that new protocol, and it just goes to zero. And then Bitcoin BTC will continue, right? In terms of things like ETH and Solana and all those proof of stake coins, those are a completely different network structure. They don't require miners in a warehouse to mine any Bitcoin or any of their native token. They rely more on staking, and the more you stake, the more yield or the reward you'll get back. I kind of consider those kind of like a Ponzi, right? You're paying out older investors with future investors, and if there's no more future investors, then the people that staked or whatever before them, their coin will just continue to drop, right? It's based on a system where you have to convince more people to buy it, or else the sell pressure will just be immense, and then it'll just continue to go down. I'm not an expert on any of these things, right? Just full disclaimer, I consider all altcoin, shitcoins very similar, whether they're a proof of work or proof of stake or proof of whatever you want to call it. I just think that a lot of them are copycats and they just want to get in. They missed Bitcoin in 2010, right? And they want those gains, and they're going to convince you of exponential of multiple ways on how to invest in their token and not Bitcoin, because they want to sell you, their token that they have, right? So if I can put $100 in and convince a million people to buy my token, I'll be a billionaire. Whereas if I buy Bitcoin, it's going to take a lot longer to get there. If you can convince a bunch of idiots to buy my token, then I can buy more Bitcoin, basically. So that's kind of where I guess I stand on those things.
Do you think that's what a lot of the altcoin foundations, all these companies are doing? Do you think that they're using the proceeds to buy Bitcoin? I mean, I'm not saying that this is what they're doing. I'm not saying that
Right.
you have some insider information.
For sure.
What do you think that that's probably the end goal?
I mean, I'd say so. There's been quotes of Vitalik raising money for the ETH seed with Bitcoin, right? They made a lot of Bitcoin off that. I think the game has kind of been, maybe last cycle or 2017, people thought that other coins were valuable. They had a utility to them. They may have truly thought that their token was going to change the world. But I feel like more and more as these cycles continue, traders, founders, they kind of realize, okay, the goal is to get more Bitcoin, whatever way possible. I'm going to launch this shitcoin. I'm going to make a bunch of Bitcoin and I'm going to dump it. And then I'm going to have a bunch of Bitcoin, right? And rinse repeat. That's kind of what like pump.fun. I don't know if you've heard that before. It's basically just a crazy pump and dump platform nowadays where any celebrity or person with any viewership online will just pump a token, and within a day it's down 99%, right? It's a get rich quick scheme. So I feel like like the facade is kind of coming down a little bit, right? This is many cycles deep now with altcoins and shitcoins kind of trading, and people are realizing, oh, the goal is Bitcoin at the end of the day. And I think we're seeing that a lot of that, even on like Twitter Spaces and stuff. When I listen into some of these spaces, it's really funny. They're just there to get more Bitcoin. They know that what the goal is now, and everyone's catching on to it. And there's less fools or people with blinds over their eyes to sell to now. So it's harder. It becomes harder and harder to sell them a shitcoin compared to Bitcoin now.
So what would you say if somebody were to tell you, oh, I have this coin in mind, I have this coin in my profile or my portfolio, I have this coin that somebody's sold to me, and it's supposed to be faster, it's supposed to be cheaper, it's supposed to be this, it's supposed to be that.
Yep.
What would be your response to that?
I think over time I've been a little less patient, perhaps. Like if they want to buy that token, then go for it, man. I mean, like, I'm not going to stop you. I can't tell you what to do with your money. If you want to try and fast track to get more Bitcoin, do I think that's ethical? Maybe not. I think it's probably in the gray area if you're trying to really shill something to convince people to buy it and it's worthless, right? It's kind of shitty to me. But some people, they're just getting into the space. Maybe they bought some stocks back in the day. They want to diversify, right? Things like that. And if they want to try and get rich and make more exponential gains on their shitcoin to buy more Bitcoin, there's obviously a huge gray area of what's moral and what's not. I don't condone shilling of any of these things, and I think a lot of people that do shill them know what they're doing. There are some people that have blinders on, like I said, and maybe they don't know. But I think a lot of people know, and I just wouldn't condone it. But if they want to talk to me about Bitcoin, I always open with, hey, if you're interested in talking about this thing called Bitcoin, I'm a big proponent of it. I highly endorse it, and I can tell you the reasons why. I buy Bitcoin over any other altcoin. If you want to talk to me, feel free to reach out, but I'm not gonna push it on them, right? I feel like a lot of new Bitcoiners, they really get excited and passionate about Bitcoin. They want to tell the world about Bitcoin, and they want hyper Bitcoinization, tomorrow. And that's just not how it is, right? People, when you tell someone what to do, it kind of detracts them more. If you shove it down their throat, then they're gonna push away farther, right? So trying to mediate that or meet them in the middle, maybe talk to them about fiat currencies and why they're failing, or even just assets in general and why they're appreciating, or why Bitcoin's much better than buying a house or buying an altcoin or whatever, right? Pros versus cons, it's a good conversation to have, but you can't really convince anyone to buy what you're buying, right? So you can only reach out and say, hey, I'm happy to help you answer your questions, but I'm not gonna shit on you or be like, you can't be my friend because you are buying something else that I don't like, right? I don't know. It's a
Yeah.
tricky one.
And I get what you mean. I feel like you can tell somebody up to a certain point that, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to screw you over.
Right.
They'll probably still end up doing it, and they have to learn their own lesson. But then
Yeah.
once they get that lesson, I guess they come back to you and they think, okay, maybe this guy actually knows what he's talking about. Maybe I'll listen to him. Maybe I'll look into this Bitcoin thing
Mm-hmm.
for once
Almost,
before.
yeah. Trial by
No, go
fire,
ahead.
almost, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they buy the token when it's peak bull market. People are excited about it. They heard it on the radio or they heard it on TikTok or whatever, right? And they buy it, and then it goes down 80 to 99%, if not more. And then they learn, and maybe hopefully next cycle they start buying some Bitcoin rather than that shitcoin, right? Or whatever.
yeah.
So
So
yeah.
what would you say if somebody said, "Oh, there's going to be a better Bitcoin that comes out. There's going to be um, a Bitcoin 2.0, or
Mm-hmm.
Caspa is going to take over this thing, or
Yeah.
Nano, or Litecoin, or whatever other coins there are." What would you say to that?
If you think that, then go for it, man. Go buy some. But in the scenario where that
Yeah,
doesn't happen, maybe have some Bitcoin
yeah,
saved away in cold storage, and hopefully, well, it will likely outperform your entire portfolio in the next 20 years. But better to be safe than sorry. I wish you luck, sir, in whatever your shitcoin of choice is, your favorite
yeah,
flavor of shitcoin. I just don't agree with you, and you're still a friend of mine, and you can talk about Bitcoin anytime, man. I just won't
yeah,
I won't engage in too much of that convo. Again, I'll obviously try and meet them halfway, but if they want to talk about the shitcoin of choice, I mean, again, it's great for you, man. I'm a head out.
yeah.
So
I get what you're saying,
whatever.
but
Yeah.
have you ever considered that maybe as Bitcoiners, we're just not opening our minds to this? Maybe because if you think about it, let's say with legacy assets
Hmm.
worked for hundreds of years.
For sure.
Real estate's been used as a store of value for about 100 years, or however long it's been used. Gold has been around for thousands of years.
Yep.
We think that Bitcoin is the first digital asset. What if we're wrong? Do you even think there's a
Mm.
possibility of that?
Well, there was hash cash before Bitcoin. I mean, it wasn't the first digital
Right.
token. It was kind of an amalgamation of many ideas in cryptography that kind of got smushed together to create Bitcoin, right? It's also the 26th version of Bitcoin that we're on right now. We are not on the first version of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not perfect. It can be upgraded methodically, slowly, conservatively, all those things, right? I'm not a move fast, break things type of guy. I also don't really have an issue with people investing in other assets like a house. I consider a house almost not an investment, more so a roof over your head. Maybe you don't want to pay someone else's mortgage. You need somewhere to live. Owning a house could prove beneficial. Is it the fastest horse in the race? Probably not, right? Over time, we've seen the total cost of a house, go down to the right versus Bitcoin. It used to be 1,000 Bitcoin for a house, then 500, like it just keeps going down. Now it's like 6 Bitcoin for a house or 4, right? Depending on where you live.
Hmm.
So you kind of show charts like that to people, and they're like, oh, okay, Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race here. Maybe over the cycles, we do have small diminishing returns in the sense that if you bought in 2010 on Bitcoin, if you bought $20, you're a multi-millionaire by now. But if you buy $10 Bitcoin right now, you might have $1,000 in 10 years, right? Still impressive, but not game changing not world changing for you, right? So that's why I also kind of understand why people buy altcoins and shitcoins, whatever, because they don't have a lot of money and they'd rather risk it all than have a safer bet, right? But yeah, in like even stocks, I mean, we were talking about MSTR offline, right? People want an asset that appreciates. They want a leverage position on Bitcoin. Nothing wrong with that. It's all good. I just know that Bitcoin is kind of like the only asset that you can hold, that you can custody yourself. Stocks, you can't do that, so you are taking on some risk there. Same with the house, you pay property tax every year. You don't really own your house, right? Those are just the things that I always kind of jump in when people ask about owning other assets. Gold, you can't move $1 million worth of gold across a border. You can barely move 10K across a border nowadays without being
Did you
flagged,
see?
right?
Did you see Binance moved $4.2 billion of Bitcoin today
Yeah,
for like $6
yeah,
in 10
crazy.
minutes?
Yeah.
Insane,
I
right?
think you posted about that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah.
nuts. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Wild, wild. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we talk to gold bugs a lot, and that's the classic. Well, how much does it cost to move $5 billion across the world in gold or in Bitcoin, right? It costs $6, costs a couple bucks, and it costs probably like a small army and a bunch of military planes to move that gold across the world, right? So
Yeah.
there are uh, crazy upsides and pros for Bitcoin versus traditional assets like houses and gold that are very hard to move and to store and to custody and all that.
So would you say that Bitcoin is just another asset, or is this a completely different financial system? I personally think it's a completely different financial system, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you fully. Obviously, it takes time, right? People are very impatient, and
Hmm.
we're only 15 years in. I know that seems like such a long time to people, but 15 years, I mean, on a gold standard is nothing, right? Gold reigned for thousands of years. So I do agree that it's a new financial system that we'd like to build on. It's verifiable. I can audit every single transaction. I can't do that with a lot of things, right? It's not just a closed source ledger in a bank. It's open source, fully auditable by anyone that runs a node. You only need 2 terabytes of storage to even verify. It's not like you need an entire data center to verify your transaction, things like that, which is very positive. And even if we build banks and other things that may have trade-offs like custody trade-offs like eCash, Chaumian eCash, things like that, you can still verify that there's a certain amount of Bitcoin pooled into this federation. And if I want to withdraw, I know that there's going to be some money there. Can someone rug me on a higher layer that's not Bitcoin, the L1? Absolutely, it's possible. But I'm okay with leaving $5 or a couple bucks, maybe a month's worth of money on a higher layer of Bitcoin that has a trade-off of custody for quicker transactions, things like that. But that's a totally different topic. But yeah, I agree with you, man. I think we're building a new financial system, not via fiat rails. We're building it on Bitcoin, and there will be multiple layers to Bitcoin. Obviously there's the big FUD about Bitcoin can only do 7 transactions a second or per minute or whatever, right? Per second. And it's like, well, have you heard of the Lightning Network, right? It's like I can do that instantly, just like an e-transfer. E-transfer takes me like 30 minutes. This takes like no time at all. There's no intermediary if I'm running my own Lightning node. If you're not running your own Lightning node, you can, again, store $10, $100 on there and send it instantaneously to someone else. And it's just like the fiat rails, but faster, right? Same with like the Visa stuff, right? Well, Visa can process so many transactions per second. It's like, well, yeah, that's like layer 3, 4, 5 on the fiat system, right? It's not final settlement. You can get a chargeback like 120 days later on those things. It's not final settlement like it is on Bitcoin. Yeah, just these false comparisons to the legacy fiat system, and realizing that the legacy system also has layers, right? You should consider Bitcoin L1 more like a Fed wire, and even a Fed wire takes more than 10 minutes. So
Everything that you're saying is it's so on point. You're explaining it so well. I want to ask you. So you mentioned something about MSTR being a leveraged play on Bitcoin
sure.
before. Perfectly fine. I agree with you. It could work. It may not.
Right.
Nobody knows. What about the ETFs?
Well, not leverage, right? It's 1-to-1. Does come with the same trade-off of custody risk, right?
Yeah.
They have proof of reserves, I guess, so you can trust them a little bit more, maybe, because you actually know that Bitcoin is stored away for you. But yeah,
I think
same
not
thing.
all the ETFs have proof of reserves.
I don't know if all of them do. I know some of them
BlackRock doesn't. I
do.
know for sure.
Oh, they don't. Okay, there you
No,
go.
they don't.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you don't have proof of reserves, I mean, like you have a paper IOU, supposedly backed by Bitcoin, right? Will you get the Bitcoin? Obviously not. You're not going to get the Bitcoin. You're going to get fiat, and then you can hopefully in the future buy Bitcoin with that. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing with Bitcoin is kind of having like a peer-to-peer electronic cash without a financial institution. So buying an ETF or buying a stock kind of counteracts that a little bit. But I understand people have money locked in IRAs or RRSPs and things like that, and they can't buy real Bitcoin with it. And they want to buy the ETF. I think that is a better long play potentially, just because it tracks it 1-to-1 with Bitcoin. The one thing that I have with MSTR that I'm kind of like, I don't know, is if something's locked in an account for 20 to 30 years, right? I'm a young guy. I'm not 40, 50. I'm not gonna take out my pension or whatever right like shortly. It's going to be 20, 30 years. Will MSTR continue to outperform Bitcoin over that time? I'm unsure. Will it outperform this cycle or next cycle? Maybe, right? Most likely, it's got a lower market cap. It's kind of like it's not an altcoin. It's not a shitcoin. But it acts similar to if Bitcoin goes up by 5%. People speculate and buy more of MSTR, then that one goes up by like 10% or 20%, right? So people are acting as if it's a leveraged play on Bitcoin. I sort of agree with that. To each their own, right? Everyone
Yeah.
wants to be more wealthy. People want to fast track that. People see the opportunity here. If that opportunity is good for you and you're willing to accept the trade-off of not owning that Bitcoin and owning the stock instead, great. I hope it works out for you. But yeah,
Yeah, honestly, that's all you can say, right? I hope it
right.
works out for you. If you're gonna
Yeah,
buy an altcoin, I hope it works out for you. A lot of
for
people
sure.
say, "Oh, I'm gonna trade my altcoins. I'm gonna get back Bitcoin."
Hmm.
The one thing that I have a little bit of pushback on is, okay, so for me, I have a locked in retirement account which I can't touch for the next uh, until 55, so
Sure.
23 more years.
Okay.
Um, and the way that I see it, let's say for example, if I had the ETFs versus if I had MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy can do something to actually increase the revenues. They can make more money over time. The ETFs don't have that
Hmm.
opportunity. So no matter what, the best case scenario when you buy the ETFs is that you underperform Bitcoin slightly. So you
Sure.
get slightly worse performance or you get zero if something happens. That's partly why I think that MicroStrategy is uh, a good play because you're taking more risk, right? You have
Of
locked
course.
in money, you can't touch it for 30
Hmm.
years. You might as well do something with it. Like, because
Right.
let's say, for example, if we think Bitcoin is going where we think it's going, we're not going to need those accounts anyways,
100%.
right? So
It's
the way
play
that I
money.
see it, I don't know.
Yeah.
The way that I see it, I don't know. It's almost like a gamble,
Yeah. Exactly. A lot of
right?
things are a gamble, right?
Yeah,
Um, I understand the point of view where if you already have paper fiat IOU bullshit.
Yeah.
You might as well push it into the fastest horse that you think is going to be
Yeah.
the highest gain, right? I think that's a great strategy, 100%. I know a lot of people that invest in MSTR, and I like Sailor. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on if you think it's going to outperform in the next 20 to 30 years. It will be tough, but you're right. Like they are selling products to buy more Bitcoin and earn a quote unquote yield on, per share, right? So that's a cool and potential upside compared to ETFs. So yeah, I understand where they're coming from.
Hmm.
I'm just obviously a very self-custody man. I try not to dabble in stocks. I'm probably gonna buy a house someday, so maybe
Amazing.
I'm a little bit hypocritical in that sense, right? Where I have a little bit of paper fiat Bitcoin in a ETF for that, or in a what do you call it? First home savers account, right? Like it's not real Bitcoin, but it's gonna go towards a house, so might as well put it in there, and it's gonna be tax-free type of thing, right? But yeah, everyone has their own journey, and as long as people have at least some Bitcoin, spot Bitcoin, in their own custody, that's the most important. And then if you want to, go to the stock exchange casino and place a bet on something that does own Bitcoin, right? I mean, MicroStrategy's better than Microsoft or any other company that holds no Bitcoin, right? So I see where the strategy is coming from. I see where people where their minds are at. Like I understand the reason why they do that. It's just
Hmm.
it's always with any stock, even with ETFs, right? In the event that all of those get rugged in the future, just be prepared for that. And as long as you have some Bitcoin in your own custody, then you're good, right? So.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. Very,
Hmm.
very well explained. I completely agree with that. I want to ask you, I want to pivot here, go
Sure.
into more of your work,
Hmm.
your ideas on storage. So I have a lot of people who want to know about how to store their Bitcoin. After somebody has, let's say, a cold card and
Hmm.
they have their Bitcoin set up like that. Of course, we can't do a tutorial. I mean, that would be great. Maybe we could
Right.
do something like that in the future. But
Yeah, maybe.
let's say, for example, once they do have their wallet set up, what are
For
your
sure.
tips on what somebody can do to um, make sure they don't get rugged? Maybe make
Hmm.
sure they don't get their Bitcoin stolen from them.
Right.
I don't know what else can we talk. I don't know what else you can add in there, but
Yeah,
go ahead
yeah, yeah.
if you have any
Yeah,
tips
no,
there.
obviously I'm not here to recommend or suggest a specific way to store your Bitcoin. I can give people suggestions and multiple options. But every person's like setup is going to be a little different. And it's going to be kind of tailored to what's best for them. Just starting off, if you've never used self custody or if you've never custodied Bitcoin on a hardware wallet signing device before and have just used a hot wallet, start by throwing $10 on it and sending it around and sending it to a different address and learning how the fee rate works and setting your fee rate and copy pasting addresses, making sure that that's the correct address and just learning about sending and receiving, right? You don't need to have thousands, millions of dollars on it to start learning that. And that's obviously the first step. Once you have your seed words, maybe consider either like a passphrase or a multi-sig. Passphrase is kind of like a 25th word on top of your seed word. So if someone ever came into your house or got a hold of your seed words, they would still need to add another layer on top of that to get to your money. Think of it like another door with infinite door possibilities. The one downside to a passphrase is if you forget it, then you're also locked out of your own money, right? So having backups is a good thing. Like I said, some people go so far as multi-sig, where they have 3 keys and they need 2 to sign. Maybe they have them in different geographical locations, different devices. Adds more complexity, right? If you lose 2 of your keys, then you cannot access your money. If you lose one of your keys and the wallet configuration file, which is kind of like how to get to your Bitcoin, then even if you have 2 keys and you don't have the map to get back to your Bitcoin, you're also rugged, right? So it's
Wow.
it's very tricky. People think it's a 2 of 3, but it's really a 3 of 4 because you need that wallet configuration file to get back to your Bitcoin. So I always tell people to start off with just their seed, right? Have a couple backups of your seed, maybe at a different location in case your house burns and goes to flames, or maybe at a completely different location so that if you get robbed, there's nothing to give them, right? There's also things like trick pins and duress wallets where on a cold card you can enter in a different pin and it will go to a different wallet. So it's called a duress wallet where instead of putting your original pin, you put in a different pin, and then you maybe have a small amount of funds in there so that you can give that to the robber, and then they leave you alone, hopefully, right? At the end of the day, someone can come into your house and shoot you in the head. It doesn't matter what you did. All your Bitcoin is gone. Hopefully, you had it set up in the way that your family can retrieve it in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, multi-sig, passphrase. There's lots of options. There's even like Unchained and Casa where they hold a key for you and you hold a key. So if you lose one, they still have a backup for you. You pay monthly for that. Just learn, man. Just learn. Everyone's a little different. Some people just
Yeah.
have raw seed, right? Some people even do kind of a manipulated multi-sig. Not exactly. It's not a multi-sig, but it's called seed XOR, where you basically you have your one seed and then you split it into three. It's not like taking the first six and then the last six. Like you're not splitting up your seed words. You're basically generating three new 12-word seeds that combined together create your master seed.
Oh,
So you
wow.
can have that at three different locations. You can have backups of those too. So in case someone robs you again, you can't give them the entire puzzle, right? The whole goal is to like not give them the entire puzzle, right? If you don't want to give them your hoard, you want to give them a small amount, like a duress wallet, whatever. But yeah, lots of options, lots of things to think about. Like I said, trick pins are awesome. Duress wallets are great. Multi-sig is a bit complicated, but some people prefer that if they have millions of dollars or whatever, right? It depends on kind of your setup. And even if you have millions of dollars, maybe multi-sig isn't for you. Maybe you want to do passphrase, or maybe you want to do seed XOR or something like that, right? It's very hard to narrow down exactly what is the best, right? Because it's kind of dependent on the person and whether they want to do it themselves or they want to have a lawyer involved, or if they want to have like a custodian like Unchained that has a portion or a key that they hold on to, right? It's a broad topic, and obviously people don't want to tell what their setup is either. So
Of course, of
it's
course.
very tricky, very tricky. But yeah, good question.
So what would you? I think there's one thing that there are certain things that people should know about. Let's say, for example, when they set up their wallet,
Mhm.
they shouldn't take a picture with their phone
Yeah,
and upload it
absolutely.
to the cloud. Are there any other
Yes.
tips? Maybe even that I don't know about.
I mean, that's obviously the first one. That's a really good one. Windows and doors, be careful. I don't know. Don't be like out in public generating your seed, right? Ideally
Oh, right.
in a room with yourself or only the people that you trust. The big one is stamping it into steel. I mean, obviously, we personally sell a seed plate, which is just like a metal plate that you stamp your seeds words into in case your house comes up in flames, or wherever you're storing your Bitcoin goes up in flames. Like it will still be readable, right? Some people store it on paper, and then they have a flood, and the paper, goes away, and then money gone, right?
Money
So
gone. Yeah.
yeah, not good either. So steel, putting it into steel is very important, and backups, right? Backups are always great. You can have lots of backups, just don't have maybe too many. But having a backup in a few locations just in case you can't access one location is also very beneficial for sure.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I think the backup is the key. The it's making sure that if something does happen to your place, there's something if it burns down, if there's a
Hmm.
flood, if you can't access it for whatever reason, make sure you have it in multiple locations. And then on top of that, with multi-sig, what you can do is I think something pretty interesting that I thought of was Bitcoin is the only asset that you can store in multiple locations. Can't
Hmm.
store like you can't store stocks in multiple locations. They're all held by a custodian, let's say in the US,
Right.
right? With
Right.
Bitcoin, what you can do is let's say you have 3 of 5. Technically, you can make so many different combinations of that so that you can have your Bitcoin stored in like 15 different locations in a way,
Hmm. That
right?
is true. The one downside potentially is, you're spreading out your risk, but you're also adding more like surface area risk, right? So You ideally want to be checking on those areas that you're storing that are
Yeah.
backups on a 6-month basis or a year basis or something, right? Just to ensure that they're still safe. Be careful with that, but yeah, for sure, for sure.
Yeah. No, no,
And
I
yeah,
completely agree with you. Completely agree. But I'm
hmm
just saying, like, there's no other asset that you can do this with.
right,
Like with real
very
estate,
true.
it's all
Yeah,
stuck in one location. You can't do anything. Even if you have
yes,
like the best level of security, like you're saying, you
right,
should check up on it, just make sure that's there. But there's nothing else that you can do this with. There's no option,
right. You
right?
have your own Swift or Swiss bank account in your pocket, right? You have
Yeah.
the most secure cryptography on the planet, military grade, in right at the tip of your hands. Like it's crazy
Yeah.
compared to storing gold or yeah, your real estate or whatever, right? You can't just pick up your real estate and see you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
And I wanted to ask you, can you talk more? Can you talk about time locking?
Um, I, I can't talk too much about it. I mean,
Okay.
you basically make a transaction that is set for a certain block time or whatnot. And so if you want to lock your coins for a year, you can set a future block height, and those coins will only be unlocked after that block has been mined. Which is really cool. It does help with security, saying like, yeah, if someone comes and robs you, you're like, hey man, I've already spent my money to this pre-signed thing that I can't unlock for a year. So you're gonna hold me hostage for an entire year before I can give you this, or you're just gonna get the hell out of here, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'd speak on it. I try and be a little technical, but in the sense of time locks, I haven't played with them enough to speak too much on them.
No, I think that explanation is great. I feel like that could be another security
For sure.
function, right?
Absolutely.
Another way to just make sure that people can't take your Bitcoin. You could put your
Hmm.
Bitcoin basically 4 years into the future, 8 years into the future, whatever you want to do,
Right.
and nobody can touch your Bitcoin. Which
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's genius. That you can't do that with anything else. You can't. I mean,
Yeah.
you can lock yourself out of your investment account, but your brokerage can unlock your account right away. If you give
Yeah.
them a call, they can unlock your account.
Right. Right.
You can close your bank account. You can open it up. Oh, you can open it right back up again. But with this, nothing that anybody can do to bring it back to the
Right.
present,
You've
which to me
already.
is
Yeah.
just so cool.
Yeah. Once you finalize that transaction, there's nothing that you can do. Yeah. It is really cool.
Yeah.
There are potential upgrades to Bitcoin that people are talking about, like covenants that kind of increase like time lock capacity, where you can spend to only specific addresses, things like that, which is really cool too. But I'm not a move fast, break things kind of guy. I leave that to the experts, and yeah, just something to think about as well. Like people want like vaults and things like that. It's kind of tied into the time lock. Time lock is just like the most basic covenant, and CTV and things like that can potentially increase those abilities. That script. So cool.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I feel like just having that ability there, just having the ability to store it in different locations, is just
Hmm.
it's crazy. Like the level of intelligence that went into creating this is just huge, and it
I
just
agree.
keeps growing and growing. And every time I look into something, it's just like, oh, another rabbit hole that I have nothing about. I have no knowledge about this, but I've spent thousands of hours learning, and it just keeps going. I want to ask you a
Yeah.
question that I ask all of my guests. The
Sure.
question is, what do you think is the most important downstream effect of Bitcoin? Let's say 10, 20, 30 years down the line.
Hmm.
How do you think the world is going to change specifically because of Bitcoin?
10, 20 years, that's so short, man. What are you talking about here?
100
I'm just
years.
kidding. There you go. Yeah.
Whatever length.
No, of course. I'm just joking with you.
I know.
Yeah, I think the downstream effects are, one thing. It's like a lot of companies build products to not last nowadays, right? You buy a
Mm,
fridge and it
planned
breaks.
obsolescence.
Yeah, it breaks within 5 years. You buy an iPhone, you got to upgrade every year or every 5 years ish, or else your firmware just slows it down purposefully. So I really hope that Bitcoin fixes that in the sense that people will be developing products and services that are built to last, based on a deflationary currency rather than something that's inflationary, like like fiat, that they need to sell more and more every single year to continue to feed their bottom line, right? They want to pay more people, they gotta increase prices all the time. So if we can make things that are built to last on a currency that is made to last, then that would be amazing. Because a lot of people, even now, they're like, why would I give you my Bitcoin? It's super valuable. It's going to be more in the future. You have to give me something of value that I personally want that will last, or else I'm not going to buy your product, right? So that's kind of where my head goes with Bitcoin, and kind of like that deflationary currency aspect. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I don't know what's in store for the future. We both don't have we're not fortune tellers, right? So we have no idea. But I look forward to kind of coming back to that. And even buildings nowadays are not built to last, right? They build them, they crumble down within like 20 years, 30 years. You've seen like those crazy architecture things in Rome and Europe, and you're like, wow, like why don't we have that today? And it's I think it's partially due to our currency failing. So if we have a better currency, then we can have things that are more built to last, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. So, couple things that I think are important because of what you're saying, with planned obsolescence basically going away.
Hmm.
Number one, there's less waste, so we don't have to keep producing the same product over and over again. We don't. We I guess we reduce single use plastics. We
That'd be
make
great.
things better. We make things higher quality,
Hmm.
so they last longer. There's less trash being created. And then the second thing, this is something that I had on my mind for a while. Do you think that companies hold back on innovation so that they can sell their products next year than the following
Oh,
year?
for sure.
Like for example, Apple. I mean,
Yeah.
you see Apple introducing um, features that Android phones had 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
to me, that just blows my mind. And then they have it on their presentations, and then people go and just eat it all up. I don't know if you're an iPhone user, an Android user. Nothing against Android users or iPhone users. I don't really
For
care
sure.
either way. It's just it doesn't make any sense to me that while iPhones are great phones, why can't they have all these features up front?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, because they want to make more money, right?
Hmm.
They need that stock to slowly go up in price rather than spike and then come back down in a free fall, right? So I agree with you, man. I mean, I understand. I understand where they're coming from because they're incentivized to do so. But again, right, on a Bitcoin standard, it's going to be increasingly hard for people to depart with their Bitcoin, so they will have to, in my opinion, create more reliable, longer lasting products. And yeah, hopefully that, a lot of people complain about, a lot of stuff in fiat land, and it's mostly because of the currency that they're using. It's based on the ground that they're building on. They're building on a fiat foundation, and all the incentives come from that inflating money. So if we can change that into Bitcoin, hopefully the future looks a bit more bright.
Are there? This is just a completely off-topic question. Are there
All
any
good.
brands that you like that they avoid planned obsolescence? Like there's one
Hmm.
that I like, for example. There's I actually went on Reddit and I searched for a subreddit called Buy It for Life,
Okay.
and they have just all these different uh, goods, all these different services, all these things that you can basically buy once, and
Hmm.
you know for a fact that you're getting a great deal. So the product that
Nice.
I like is there's a brand called Blend Tech. It's a
Okay.
blender. This thing's
Nice.
lasted so long, and I literally put just ice in there. I put frozen fruits, and they're just it just
Crushing it.
eats everything up, right?
Yeah.
It's actually lasted me 4 or 5 years. I'm so happy that I bought it. Are there any things like that that you have used?
Um, it's a great question. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. The only thing that I can think of, I'm a little bit of a watch guy.
Oh, okay.
So there's a company called Christopher Ward. They build watches, and they're built to last, and they're not crazy marked up, right? They have a lot of the pieces that are in your high quality brand watches, but they are not charging you an arm and a leg for them. So I think that those guys are great. Like I said, instead of buying a Rolex for 10, 20, $30,000, these things are, obviously a little bit higher in price, but they are more built to last. And yeah, I like them.
They're really nice.
They're cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
obviously still more of a luxury brand watch. It's not like
Yeah.
a Timex. I mean, obviously anything that tells time, I can buy a Casio for for $20 and it serves the same function. But
Yeah.
just kind of like the parts inside and the longevity, I find that they're pretty decent compared to a lot of these luxury brands that just, the cost of the watch is $500 or $1,000, and then they charge 30 grand. These things are, say, $1,000 to make, and maybe they charge 2 or 3 grand. So I think their margins are pretty reasonable. And like I said, I'm just a bit of a watch guy, so I kind of like that stuff.
No, that's awesome.
Don't want to break the
I like
bank.
that.
Yeah,
I like that because people will wear a watch for the rest of their lives if they want to. Okay,
100%.
and
Yeah,
last question. I really appreciate your time here, man. Last
absolutely.
question. So a lot of my audience is newer to Bitcoin. I'm personally newer to Bitcoin. I don't know if you know this, but I started studying Bitcoin in 2021.
Okay,
I
cool.
started buying Bitcoin in 2022.
Hmm.
Any tips for navigating this coming bull market?
Hmm. Before I was gonna say, I know you get a lot of hate on your Twitter because you used to be more of a stock real
Yeah,
estate guy, and now
tons of
you're
hate.
talking a lot about Bitcoin, and your viewers are like, "Fuck Bitcoin, that's a scam, it's a
Yeah,
Ponzi." But yeah, so anyway, I feel you on that one. Sorry to hear about that, and you're doing great, man. I think you're really orange pilling
appreciate it.
a lot of your followers. In terms of this cycle, I would say, don't get wrapped up in the hype or the FOMO too much, right? I find a lot of people that came in similar time as you, they hopped on Twitter, they got orange pilled really fast, and then they dumped everything into Bitcoin at like 60K, right? And
Yeah,
as you know, Bitcoin went to about 16K US, right? And then they get deterred from that because they're like, man, like I lost so much money. Then they sell at the bottom, and then now we're here back at 100 and what, $2,000, right? And everyone's basically in profit at this point. So I would say to a lot of people, just start by DCAing a small amount. As your conviction grows, I'm sure the more that you'll allocate, right? Put 1 to 2%. If you're a stock bro or a real estate mogul, 1 to 2%. See how it goes, and don't stop buying. And be careful with those crazy ape buying. There are times when Bitcoin is quote unquote overpriced, right? Just like it was overpriced technically at 69K last cycle. It's just, zoom out, look at the bigger picture, and realize that this is more of a retirement savings account rather than a get rich quick in 2 years type of thing, right? Anyone that's held more than 4 years has done pretty well, or at least hasn't lost fiat, value, right? So I find a lot of people, they're just very impatient. They ape in, and then they get sad when they bought the top right before a bear market. So don't get too caught up in the hype, but obviously Bitcoin's really exciting, and you want to tell everyone about it. Just watch for those signs when like every single ad you're getting is crypto related, and Coinbase is the top trending on the App Store. There's a lot of signs that kind of point to, hey, we might be a little bit overblown, right? We might see a blow off top this cycle. But I don't know. It could also be where this time is different, and it doesn't go down anymore, right? But I'm not exactly in that camp. If it happens, I'm prepared for that and I'm ready. If not, then I'm gonna be ready for the bear market and be buying again. So, yeah.
that's it. Amazing tips. I feel like that's so valuable. Just not. I actually feel like it's not possible to be orange pilled like overnight.
Hmm.
I think that's next to impossible. It takes a lot of time,
It
takes
does.
a lot of effort because there's so many
Absolutely.
different things you have to learn. You have to
Yeah.
go through the actual understanding of how the market moves. Like now, I'm seeing so many different trends. Before I didn't see them. The
Hmm.
market moves sideways, or it goes up, or it goes down. Like that's it.
Right.
It doesn't just have these tiny moves where like in the stock market it just grinds up no matter what. That's
Hmm.
not what happens with Bitcoin. It happens over time. You're going to see sideways movement like we just went through
Like
eight
6, 8
months
months
of
of just, yeah, chop,
consolidation, right?
chop.
It just moved
Yeah.
sideways, and it was so boring. It actually like it probably made a lot of people just sell out of boredom. They were just
Hmm.
thinking, "Oh, this is doing nothing. No
Right.
point of holding this thing. I'm going to get rid of it." Right? So a lot of people probably got rid of their Bitcoin because of that. If you learn slowly, if you learn over time, if you learn over, let's say, 3, 4 years, you're going to learn a lot more of the nuances that a lot of other people haven't figured out. Like, for
Hmm.
example, the difficulty adjustment. A lot of people have no idea what the difficulty adjustment is,
Right.
and yet they're posting on Twitter saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme. The If there's quantum computing,
Yeah.
it's going to be
Yeah.
destroyed." All that
Lots of
stuff.
FUD. Yeah.
Right? They don't get it, right? But
Yeah.
then the thing is that the people who have learned slowly and over time, they've taken their time to purchase Bitcoin, and they've dollar cost averaged in whatever they can buy. They've bought,
For sure.
and now they're just sitting on it, and they're good, right? They're happy,
Right.
right?
Yeah. There's a lot of people, even in Bitcoin, that buy a lot of Bitcoin and they don't know much
Yeah,
about the underlying technology, and that's okay too.
yeah,
Um, you know, it it's really tricky because there's a lot of people that won't even take an hour to assess, their spending habits and learn how to save money. Or maybe they're a bit overweight and they need to work on their nutrition, or right, like, there's not a lot of people that, in the grand scheme of things, go to the gym and work on their fitness even. So it's really tricky to get people to sit down and think about the best financial decision of their life, and for
yeah,
them to buy into it, in a 1 hour period. So I agree, it takes a lot of time and effort, and I wish more people were able to sit down and think about it. Slowly but surely, people will learn. I think a lot of people learn the best with NGU. Um,
yeah.
Obviously, that's not the
Number
only
goes up,
aspect.
by the way, for people who
Yes,
don't know.
exactly. Yeah, NGU number go up. And people, I think that's how most people learn, and then they kind of jump down that rabbit hole or dive in that rabbit hole um, deeper as they kind of stay for their second cycle, third cycle, things like that, right? So NGU is great. It's not the only aspect to Bitcoin or what makes Bitcoin important, but it is obviously a very important property of it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Awesome, D. That was great. I feel like that was so useful. That was if people are new to Bitcoin, they're going to learn a lot from this conversation. Any last things you want to say? Maybe to plug yourself, plug
Sure.
CoinKite, whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a customer support specialist at CoinKite. Um, Feel free to send us an email at support@coinkite.com if you have any questions about our products. We sell things like the MK4, the Cold Card Q. You'll see some people, they'll have like a block clock. If you can see on the back of my wall here, we sell these
Yeah,
block clocks. Really cool little device that shows you the block time, whatever you want really. The price in Bitcoin, price in USD, price in Canadian dollars, whatever you like. We also sell tap signers, which are more of a blind signing hardware wallet. The trade-off is that it doesn't have a screen, so we always recommend, cold storage. Get like a Cold Card Q or MK4. If you want to have some walking around money, you want to spend on a trip, maybe get a tap signer. We also sell a Sats card, which is like a gift card. You can give it to people at weddings, and maybe they don't have any Bitcoin. You want to give them 100,000 Sats for their wedding, or a million Sats, or whatever amount you want. You can load it and give it to them, and now they have Bitcoin, right? So we also sell shirts and other fun products. So yeah, feel free to check us out at coinkite.com. And thanks for having me, Rajat. I really appreciate you having me on, and this was a great conversation. So
awesome. And is there anything that anywhere that people can find you? Your
oh, for
Twitter.
sure, yeah. I have HODLD here at the bottom. That's my Twitter account. So at HODLD is where you'll find me. There are a lot of scammers, so please be careful. For some reason, people love to impersonate me, especially on Telegram. So please be careful. And, again, reach out via email if you have any questions about anything. That's the best plug for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, D. Really, really
Yeah.
appreciate it. I hope my audience found this valuable.
Thanks for having me.
That's
Appreciate it.
awesome.